Yeah, thanks for the question. My name is Samiul Hossain. I'm a psychologist working at Cope Center. And aside from working at Cope Center, I also work as a lecturer at the Murdoch University. So why did I become a psychologist? Well, I read a book in my HSC years while I was preparing for my exam. It was a fictional work. There was an author. They were writing a lot of psychological fiction, and they incorporate some ideas from Sigmund Freud, and then his idea about unconscious mind, and then how unconscious mind controls or influences our conscious decision. And then I got hooked into it, and then I became very interested and fascinated about human mind. So that was a primary reason to study psychology. And then the more I study psychology, then I realized I'd like to be in a helping profession. I'd like to help people to overcome their inner struggle. So these are the two main reasons that I become a psychologist, and still being a psychologist. My days involve training new psychologists. So in order to be a psychologist in Australia, you need to have a master's degree. So I teach the new psychologists. I train them to be a psychologist. So they're in their first year of their training. So in the first year means they're in their fifth year of their continuous study. Okay, so because in order to become a psychologist, you start your training in your fifth year of your study. So I often get them at the fifth year, and then I spend a lot of time with them, and then we discuss different practice related issues, like what is happening in the field right now. So what sort of issues we've seen in the practice, and then how it can influence our practice. And as I'm a practicing psychologist, I can bring a lot of those experience into the training. So for example, we've seen a lot of issues and the rise of AI, so to speak. We haven't had that 5 years ago. Now we have AI, and then AI could provide some sort of therapy. And I need to train them on AI-based mental health tool. And then I also need to train them to how to use this tool. So my typical days include training new psychologists mostly, and then also helping them to do with their research. And that's why I think in my practice I get quite familiar with young people, because I work with them every day. I get familiar with the young people, and I can understand their treatment needs. So it's busy, and I still like it. Yeah, so I mostly practice and apply cognitive behavior therapy. So CBT is all about changing our thought, or changing the way we see the world. And as I'm an emotion regulation researcher, I study emotion regulation, and I study how emotion regulation impacts our well-being. So I incorporate a lot of my study findings into my therapy. And I'm also trained as a cross-cultural, like I do conduct a lot of research into cross-cultural psychology. So I do understand that the cultural expression of mental health is different across the culture. So for example, in many of the Asian culture, they express mental health by expressing physical symptoms like headache. As an example, I once had a young client, and they came to me through a GP, because GP found they have chronic headache, and then with analgesic painkiller it's not working, and they've done a host of medical tests and nothing came out. And then eventually the GP sent the client to me, and then after some sessions I explore, and then I realized that this client is struggling with their identity. Like they're the first generation Australian born to a migrant parents, and sometimes they find it difficult to fit in, and they have questions about their identity. They're also questioning their sexual identity. And then from there we found out that that is what causing a lot of those headache. So I applied cognitive behavior therapy, and to help them understand this cultural expression of mental health symptoms. And then I also applied emotion regulation training, because the tension that arises from their cultural identity and clash of identity, that can be dealt with emotion regulation training. And they feel better after 6 or 7 session, and then we continued for 10 session, and then they're fine now. So this is one of the examples that how my research and therapy, they work in hand, how I can get the best of the both world. I get therapy techniques from my research, and I get research ideas from my therapy. Thank you.